Hello, fellow scholars and purveyors of morbid curiosities alike. I'm Dr. Caleb, joined by the real Harold Holt himself, Dr. Zach,
Oh no.
and this is SCPod. Zach, how are you today?
Oh, I'm fine. At least I'm not on fire. How are you?
I would say I'm also fine. Just, you know what? I'm disappointed I'm not a skeleton.
Don't worry.
I'll say that.
Don't worry. Not yet.
The day is still young, I guess. So, for those of you who tuned into our last episode, we talked about Tyler, an 8-year-old boy who seems to be replicated over and over and over.
And Tyler accessories.
In the footnotes of the article, yes, Tyler and Tyler accessories. So we dealt with Tyler, the 8-year-old boy who was replicated multiple times, and we have no idea where it's coming from. And in the footnotes of that episode, we found a few SCPs that were attached to the Tyler article. And we had a gargantuan episode. We talked about 3 SCPs. And it was a real fun episode, but we got fucking sick of talking about SCPs for that day.
Yeah.
So we decided to save the next SCP for our next episode. And man, what a doozy did we pick up. So today we are talking about SCP-3477. Will the real Harold Holt please stand up? Zach, do you want us to take us
And
through
you'll notice how none of them held stand up.
it?
Yeah, so SCP-3477, Object Class Euclid. Standard Special Containment Procedures. Each instance of SCP-3477 is to be contained in a separate standard humanoid anomaly containment cell modified appropriately for each instance located at Site-72. Instances may be informed of the existence of other instances, but are no longer allowed to be in contact with each other. Each specific instance of SCP-3477 has specialized containment procedures relating to its specific properties. For full containment details, consult document 3477 number 1.
And trust me, we will get to that. So, 3477. 3477 is a collection of humanoids claiming to be Harold Holt, the 17th Prime Minister of Australia. 3477-0 was presumed dead after disappearing in 1967. I believe there was something about, like, he was swimming and then just disappeared. There are...
Yeah, that's kind of the short of it.
Yeah. There are currently 34 instances of 3477. And each one has unique anomalous properties, and each claim to be the original 3477-0, the original Harold Holt. Each one faked their death to avoid suspicion and gain some sort of immortality. And each has talked about gaining immortality by any means, and thus each one gained it in a completely different way. And there seems to be only one diverging point in every single instance, which is how they gain the immortality. Outside of that, each one seems to be almost the exact same person. And
Exactly the same.
Yeah. Zach, do you have anything to add about the basic description of 3477 here?
No, so this is kind of a weird entry because I think I say that about every entry we cover at this point, but specifically with Harold Holt, it's where the base entity isn't necessarily interesting because there's no base entity. Like, we don't have the original Harold Holt, I think, and so we don't know necessarily what the divergent point is other than that point of immortality. But boy, do I have some questions about this one.
Well, but the thing is, we do have the real Harold Holt. It's just we have 34 of him.
Dude. That's kind of what I mean, though. Is like it's kind of the syndrome situation where it's like if they're all the original Harold Holt, then there was no original. It's like it's a simulacra, copies without an original.
Yeah. So there's a lot. If you follow along the article at home, which I really hope that you're not, because that does break confidentiality agreements.
They will find
They
you.
one of these was on the O5 Council, so they can do
No, it
this.
wasn't.
Oh,
For the record, we don't know about that one. Don't ask us about that one. It doesn't exist.
it's been a while since we've seen the hat guy from our new hire orientation episode, but is this just
There's
like
a reason for that, and I'm hoping
PTSD?
I think he's coming down the hallway now, so for the sake of our continued survival, let's move on.
Okay. So, yeah, there's just these 34 individuals. They all claim to be Harold Holt. They all think and act and tell stories just like the real Harold Holt. And they're just weirdos. So, for this episode, we aren't going to go into every single, all 34 Harold Holts. One, because we treasure our existence and don't want to be obliterated. And two, we like our listener retention. So,
Yes.
Zach and I have come up with our 3 favorite instances, and I think we're just going to talk about some of them. So, Zach, why don't you go first?
Yeah, so one that I think is particularly interesting for hard to explain reasons is 3477-11, where there doesn't seem to be any signs of medical aging. He just claims to be a dude, and as far as we can tell, is just Harold Holt. Though he doesn't show, when asked about his specific immortality, the only answer we've gotten is that he gained it through, quote, forbidden molasses-based alchemy. And I don't know what that means, and I'm scared to ask further. It's worth pointing out that we do actually have a molasses-related SCP here in the Foundation. SCP-3872, which is a kind of also a copy of a weird historical figure in that it's for all appearances, is a copy of William Henry Seward, which was a former Secretary of State for the United States that helped buy Alaska. And I'm not really sure what to do with that, Dr. Caleb.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do about it. I'm going to ignore that it has possibility of being attached to another SCP and not risk another Tyler situation. And I'm going to tell you about my first favorite one, and that would be 3477-1. This one was gifted shark-like skin, the ability to breathe underwater, reduced aging, and multiple rows of teeth. And the way it achieved this immortality was it pledged to the Great Barrier Reef Empire in Exile, a group of intelligent dolphins which gave him the modifications in return for help reclaiming the reef. Which, for being the Prime Minister of Australia, I think that's just your due diligence, honestly. And
I want to point out that this is a bit hypocritical of the Honorable Mr. Holt, because if I recall it correctly, one of the major factions of the Dolphins is a Communist Party thing, and they were having their own version of a Red Scare at the time. So not only did he commit, what could best be described as crimes against God and nature by turning into this horrible abomination, he is also ideologically inconsistent.
well, I don't have a retort. Some things they just don't they don't make sense here.
Also, the leader of the communist faction of the Dolphins is named Flipper Marx, which is apropos of nothing. I just like it.
And we will be doing an episode on the Great Barrier Reef Empire in Exile. Plus all of the other, we're going to be going over a bunch of groups of interest, and they'll all get their time in the limelight.
Oh yeah.
Zach, what's your next example?
Well, speaking of early entries, another one I picked was 3477-2. -2 was an instance of SCP-742-1, which is one of the many sentient undead or zombie-like SCPs we have. These ones in particular have a retrovirus that makes them have to eat bone marrow, which is a bit messy. As the name implies, this is actually the second one we found, which raised the whole question of how many Harold Holts are there. And we found him back in the 70s during an outbreak F742 in Canberra. So we have a partial zombie Harold Holt.
That's... I don't know what's scarier. The fact that there is a zombie Harold Holt, or the fact that you picked another Harold Holt that is attached to another SCP.
Look, dude, you saw the file too. This guy is literally attached to everything. We have a category 5 Pepe Silva situation.
He's got his hands in multiple cookie jars.
He has multiple arms with multiple hands and multiple cookie jars.
Well, okay, I'm very happy to announce that my next one is my next thing for show and tell is not attached to an SCP or a group of interest. That would be 3477-8, which is probably my favorite thing I've ever read from the SCP Foundation, and that is a Harold Holt that is an animate skeleton held together by an unknown black substance at the joints. And he, because he is a skeleton and he does not have a voice box or eyes or anything like that, he communicates via sign language, which I love the idea of a skeleton performing Naruto hand signs. And he was transformed via necromancy, which if I go missing for a month after this episode, just know that I'm hunting for those necromancers.
Dr. Caleb, is it metal?
Is it metal?
Never mind. My third one is 3477-34. Dr. Caleb, this is the one that's always on fire. So 34 is always on fire, and he doesn't seem to be harmed by it. He is a bit on the Cajun side, being a little crispy. But the fire keeps going, and we don't know where it keeps going on, or where the fuel comes from. We asked 34 in an audio log, thank you again, Caleb, claims that he remains alive as long as the fire keeps going, and if the fire goes out, he dies, making him effectively a human Charmander.
That would technically make him not immortal, right?
Well, it's a conditional immortality. Like, the skeleton's alive until I find a claw hammer.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, it's he has a real life Pokemon weakness too. Like, one splash of water and he's toast. He
Also,
can't go missing while swimming anymore.
Dr. Caleb, can you hand me over that tape deck over there?
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't
Again,
know.
thank you.
I don't know why you need that, but anyway.
And play.
Hello. Please clearly state your name for the purposes of the interview.
I am Harold Holt, former Australian Prime Minister.
Thank you. Please describe your anomalies.
Oh, you mean my immortality? Why, of course. I set myself on fire, channeling my life force into the fire. The fire is an eternal flame, and its fuel is the essence of fire. As long as this fire burns, I will continue to live.
And what drove you to seek this form of immortality?
Well, I have always wanted to live forever, you see, ever since I was a child, but I knew that could never be the case. Then, I got elected Prime Minister, and then your foundation, the Mana Charitable Foundation, the Global Occult Coalition, the Horizon Initiative, they're all calling me, trying to get my ear. All of a sudden, I realized that my dreams are within reach.
Could you elaborate more on your fear of death?
Of course, I have been afraid of dying since I was just a boy. Complete terror at the thought of ever not being alive. And I resolved when I was a boy that I would not stop, that I would not ever let myself die. But to the normal man, that can't happen. Normal buddy lives forever, and there's nothing you can do to stop death. But then I found out magic was real. I had built a life in politics, but that wasn't important anymore. Immortality was my only goal.
But why did you choose setting yourself on fire?
Well, I had some top men look for ways to get me immortality. They came back with a couple of methods, but I chose self-immolation because I thought it was the one that was the safest. There will always be fire, and as long as there is fire, I will continue to burn.
Do you remember what some of these other methods were?
No, not really. I think there were vampires, some religious cults, a few other things.
And these didn't interest you?
I suppose in another life I could have gone for one, but I chose fire. You know, I was wondering when the Foundation would get a hold of me.
What do you mean?
Well, I didn't do the best job of keeping myself secret. I got pretty careless a few times. Also, I've been on fire for the past 50 years.
Mr. Holt, the Foundation happens to have several other individuals claiming to be Harold Holt in containment.
Is that so? How many?
You are the 34th Harold Holt we have contained.
So you don't believe I'm the real Harold Holt, do you?
Unfortunately, we cannot verify any Harold Holt as real.
That doesn't put me in a good situation, does it?
You will receive standard humanoid containment measures. Thank you for your time, Mr. Holt. You've answered all our standard questions for Harold Holtz with standard answers. Wait a second. I thought that we weren't going to do the audio tape this time.
Dr. Caleb, you read the same audio transcript I did. You can't see... I cannot read the line, and I've been on fire for 50 years, and not record it. You know me better than that.
I would say that yes, that would make sense, but like again, I don't remember this audio. Wait a second. I should have known better. Oh, I should have known better than to go for the slice of pizza under a box and stick.
On behalf of the Foundation and our supervisor, I'm kind of ashamed that you actually fell for it.
Well, I never went to Houdini school, so I will say, me being drugged up, my voice acting skills are getting immaculate, and I'll see you guys all on I don't know, whatever the next new hip anime is going to be. Okay, well, I guess that's all of Zach's. My last Harold Holt, just filled with all these existential questions about being drugged and how great I am while I'm asleep. And anyway, 3477-14. This one's a doozy. 3477-14 has numerous mutations. His left forearm is replaced with 4 tentacles, and the relocation of the left forearm is to the right forearm, and he's implanted with an SK Bio Type Z, which, Dr. Zach, do you even know what the fuck that means?
Not off the top of my head. Which one was this? 14?
Yeah. He's genetically
this is some
human.
Nonsense, isn't it?
He's genetically human, even if the human body can't handle those mutations. You're right, Zach. He was a Volatar? Is it? That's a weird word.
Ooh. Yeah, so that's a Sarkic SCP. And you kind of touched on this a little bit ago, that Harold Holt really does interact with almost most of the major groups of interest. Sarcasm, I don't think we've actually had a chance to talk about sarcasm in depth, and I would really like to do that at certain points, just because it's a really, really interesting and horribly morbid field to study, but sarcasm is, it's a whole thing.
Yeah, I don't know very much about it. I tend to stick away from the cults, but in the case of this Harold Holt, he was a Volatar of the Sinew Brotherhood, which is the largest Sarkic group in Australia, and was discovered having a religious debate with 3477-13, who was a member of the Cogwork Orthodox Church.
Yeah, that's a subsect of the Church of the Broken God, which is another really big group of interest. Dr. Caleb, you and I get together after we record this episode, and we're going to do a deep dive into sarcasm.
I guess so. Yeah, Harold
We're
Holt
going on a field trip.
is triggering some sort of PTSD of just being attached to way too many things. Yeah, I don't even. Wow. Okay, so those are 6 of the 34 of them. There's all sorts of different ones. Ones that were granted immortality by like the Fountain of Youth and all sorts of groups of interest and things like that. But what's really interesting about these, each of them is like an SCP in and of themselves. But what's interesting about them is how they act when they're together, and that can be seen from Addendum 3477.3, where we were going to have an audio log for this, but nobody at the SCP Foundation actually talks to us, and we need voice actors for like 37 people, and yeah, so if you and 34 of your friends who are listening would like to be on the hit new podcast SCPod, please write us in, and we would love to re-record this audio log. But for now,
I want to point out that if anyone does actually reach out to them, the MTF will have no choice but to make a house call. Just pointing that out there.
SCPod is not responsible for any broken limbs or cause of death
or disappearing that may happen.
So with this addendum, point 3, it's pretty much it's a very simple one. As long as the audio log is, it's very simply just kind of showing that every instance is seen to think the exact same way and retell memories of the original Harold Holt in unison. So it's noted in the description that there's no telepathy going on. There's no like talking to each other or anything like that. It's just like they think the exact same way, and so they, in all the tests, things are solved the exact same way, even if they weren't shown to them before or anything like that.
Yeah. Like, I'm looking at the transcript of the audio log now, and I really want to know what -3 did. Oh, wait, is that the 05 one?
No. So, Addendum 3477.4. So, Addendum 3477.4 details the most tragic tale in all of Harold Holt. And that is, since 2017, they've all escaped. There was no discussion of a breakout plan, and it's almost like they just all had the exact same idea on how to escape. The procedures,
because they're all the same person.
Right. The procedures to recapture them have not been updated in 20 years, and thus there are 11 new instances that have no recapture method. And thus, the MTF cannot pursue at this time.
Yeah.
So, there's just all these immortal politicians out there.
Again, one of them is on fire and has been for 50 years, so I don't know why we can't just find him again.
Well, if we need to,
like,
yeah, I was gonna say if
like a half shark man.
If I was 3477-8, I would be located in the G graveyard, if you know what I'm talking about.
I don't know. I mean, you would still notice like a skeleton just there, because typically that's not how graveyards are set up.
I bet he's having tons of fun.
We're gonna get fired again.
This is this is why I'm the one that's drugged.
yeah, it is. Though at some point, you and I are gonna have to do like a maybe for your birthday. By the way, happy birthday! We'll have to do like a weird skeleton episode. There are a lot of bone-based SCPs.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know I'm there. Skeletons are my favorite animal on the face of the planet.
No comment.
So, so yeah, that's Harold Holt. there's not. I mean, there's a lot going on here. Don't get me wrong, but like,
Yeah.
there's a lot going on with the individual instances, but not a lot going on with the SCP itself, which is the collection of them. They all seem to think the exact same, and there have been multiple tests where like they're given logic puzzles that are randomly generated or something like that, and each Harold Holt solves them the exact same way in the same exact amount of time. It's almost like the Harold Holt, his consciousness and his everything has been split across these 34 instances.
Yeah, like, this is one of those things where, like, I wonder if the actual SCP is the phenomena that created the duplicates and not the duplicate itself, if that makes sense. Sort of like the thing with Tyler.
You just
where,
can't
Tyler
you can't let good enough alone, can you?
No, I really can't. That's why I'm here. But no, it's because like this. If you remember, like we came across Harold Holt because of the Tyler situation. But and tell me if you saw anything. But I don't see anything in here related to like the sender or the bus on Triton or Titan, whatever it is, or anything like that. So I wonder if the effect or the similarity between Holt and Tyler is just that there's duplicates of the same dude.
Yeah, I think that's what the footnote said, is that it's very incredibly similar to Tyler, but obviously very different in like. Yes, they're duplicates of the same person, but Tyler, there's thousands of Tylers, whereas as far as we know, at least, there's only 34 Holts.
Well, plus the 11.
Plus the 11. What do you mean?
Because like there was the more that happened after the escape attempt.
Oh, so the way I read that is the procedures of recapture were only updated for the first 23, and then now there's 34 in total.
Oh, gotcha. That makes sense. That makes more sense. Gotcha.
Yeah.
But that would make sense. Yeah. But I can't help but wonder if the phenomena that creates the duplicates is the anomaly, rather than the product being the anomaly.
You know, Zach, this is why I love working with you. Is we went into this interdimensional nasal cavity, and you said the anomaly here is actually the nail. You look at Tyler and you go, the anomaly here is actually like I don't even know, like the duplication, which I guess is probably actually the anomaly, but.
Well, I mean, like I think it's the sender, honestly, because like Mr. Sender was the teacher, and the bus references Sender, and he's the common denominator between all three of those SCPs.
Yeah. And then you look at Harold Holt, and you're like, you know, the anomaly here is actually the duplication, not the immortality gained by all these anomalous means, not his consciousness spread between so many different people, but it's got to be the duplication.
Well, I mean, like, I feel like I'm taking a reasonable, at least like, I got there in a reasonable way, in that, yes, all the effects is shown by the individual Harold Holtz are anomalous, because immortality is a bit anomalous, and he's interacting with these different anomalous groups that are clearly having, like, non-standard reality effects, but they were all preceded by this duplication event of the Harold Holt.
Okay.
And so I feel like if there's any traces, I feel like that's the real question we need to find out to really unravel what's going on here, is that how did we get 34 of the 14th Australian Prime Minister?
I guess I'm limited in my thoughts and breaking the mold of like SCPs as objects and more as like they can be events.
They could be ideas. I mean, we have plenty of like cognito hazards too, like a SCP-55.
What?
Huh? I was waiting for you to say something.
Zach, what do you think happened? What's your theory on what happened here?
I think you and I are both aware that there are a lot of weird things that can happen to somebody. in terms of anomalies, like just taking a wild step in the dark. I kind of want to say that either there was because they're all, as far as we can tell, and it can be tested, they're literally all the same person, right?
Yeah.
And so the what I think kind of happened is that there may have been like a weird gap or tethering of just sort of like different timelines or alternate realities where the exact same copy of a person managed to waddle into our reality, because that would explain why they're all the same person, because they're all the same person just from different timelines.
Okay. That's
And
an
that may
interesting
be
take.
that might be because we know there's alternate timelines, right? That's why we have like Scranton reality anchors and stuff like that. But that would explain why everything is the same up to a specific point, and maybe the divergence is not necessarily the disappearances, but that event that precipitated them coming into our timelines
Right, an
post
actual divergence.
immortality. And it would kind of explain why like he disappeared in our timeline too, because there's no trace of him, because there's 34 of him, if that makes sense. And after that, because he fakes his own death, he gets immortality through some means, and then we find him.
Okay, okay. That
And so there's no traces because we have the traces.
yeah, that's an interesting thought. I hadn't really thought about it that way. I was drawing parallels with Tyler to a point, to a fault,
Mm.
but you know, because Tyler got on a bus, or no, he was going to get on the bus, got called back into the school,
Mm.
and then nobody saw him again, and then all of a sudden, there's tons of them, and
Yeah, and
that's
so I can't.
a parallel
Go ahead.
almost to what Harold Holt has, where he was swimming and then disappears, and now there's tons of them, and so even like if we look at some of the expanded universe of Tyler, like the bus talks about
Mm.
how he didn't get on the bus, and the quote unquote kids on the bus um, ask like why didn't Tyler get on the bus, and so I think that there is some sort of connection and anomaly here. I don't know if it's a divergence in timelines, or if you know, there's just
Mm.
some sort of anomalous thing that happened. To be fair as well, Tyler happened. I want to say in the '80s, if I remember right, is when it started, and Harold
Yeah,
Holt
more
happened so
recently.
much earlier. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's
so it
like
can't be a
going over
one-time
what I
effect.
just. Yeah, well, it's like if I go with the reasoning I just used, talking about the different timelines, I don't think that, other than the effect of having a duplicate of the same person, that I'm not sure that 3477 is related to Tyler. If I think about it through the lens of what I just said for why I think what happened to Harold Holt, because we have all these additional details from the three SCPs related to Tyler, because we have the classroom, we have the bus, and then we have Tyler himself. And then the only common denominator of them is the teacher, Mr. Sender, and it's referenced by all three of them. And so I feel like, other than the effect, like I said, other than the actual effect of producing individual copies of the same person, I'm no longer certain that they are related.
No, I don't think that they're related, and I would have to go back and read the article for Tyler,
Yeah.
but I just recall them saying like due to the similarities in them, they're both being
Mm.
researched by very similar means. At least with Tyler
Mm.
itself, like uh, was that 1680? Is that what Tyler is? Um,
Yeah, I think so.
so when it's just Tyler itself, not the bus or the classroom, but just Tyler itself, like you can see the similarities in like duplication of a
Oh
humanoid
yeah.
entity, duplication of a humanoid entity. The interesting thing is between the two of them, Tyler like experienced existential dread when he met a clone of himself, and the Harold Holtz were all
Mm.
pretty chummy with each other, almost like they knew that this had happened. Although it's noted that until all 34 of them were in the same room, none of them had actually talked to each other except for 13 and 14. And so they did not know that any of the other ones existed either.
Yeah, which is a interesting thing to dwell on, and I can speculate as to why, but it's worth pointing out that they do have different reactions to meeting their doubles.
Oh, do they? Did I miss that?
No, I mean, it's what you just said, though, is that Tyler freaks out when he sees another Tyler, but Harold Holt becomes best friends.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And, it could just be, like, the 8-year-old innocence, and, like, if I was 8 years old and I met my doppelganger, I would probably be a little freaked out, too. Whereas Harold Holt is...
yeah.
It's also noted that Harold Holt was privy, because he was holding a seat of power, he was privy to the Foundation and all these other groups of interest. So maybe it's a little less of a shock to him.
That could be it. Because, like you said, he's already aware that there are things wrong with reality. And so he would be at least more prepared to make that realization that there's more than one of him.
Right. And he does say in that audio log that he found out that there's magic in the world and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think that there's probably... He's more well equipped to deal with that existential dread than a random 8-year-old. So...
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really fun thought experiment of, like, why this happened, but I think the more interesting question is, Zach, I want you to tag yourself. Which way to become immortal would you personally go with?
If I was going for myself...
Out of the 34 ways.
Out of the 34 ways, I'd probably go with 19.
Okay, do you want to explain that one for the listeners?
Yeah, so 3477-19 is a non-corporeal humanoid, which is basically a ghost, that was able to get a hold of us by pointing us in the direction of its body. Basically what happened is that 3477-19 basically sacrificed its own body to become a ghost. And so he's immortal because he's already dead.
Oh, okay.
So he can't be killed again.
Right.
Well, not easily, but he doesn't have to worry about catching the cold anymore.
Just gotta really hope that like Ghostbusters aren't real.
No, they're definitely real. But like he doesn't have to worry about COVID, so there's that.
That's true. True.
But yeah, what about you? I think I would definitely turn myself into a ghost.
Everybody already knows the one I'm picking. I would go with necromancy. I would become a skeleton.
Yeah.
So, we would just be the spooky bros.
Right? Like I could see if I could possess your skeleton.
Oh my goodness. I'm already like scheduling my appointment with my
or no, hear me out. Like
surgeon.
Like we could if we could synchronize our motions, like my apparition could appear over your skeleton, and so like we could be like double spooky.
Oh. If I was a skeleton, I would rent myself out for Halloween decoration.
And then, like, not realizing they bought an actual skeleton, just jump out for your own amusement.
Yeah. No, that's exactly,
no. Sell yourself
exactly what it would be.
So, like, sell yourself off to, like, a medical college and then have a real good time later.
Oh. Like, okay, you just sit completely still, like, at the medical college until somebody, like, it's just one person in the room, and you, like, grab their hand, they're gonna be like, no one will ever believe you. And then go back to being inanimate.
Well, it's like because like you're a skeleton, and it's like you have to sign language it.
Oh, that's true.
Which is almost worse because it's like he can't just say he'll loose. Like it was like an auditor, like it was his brain playing tricks on him. Because like you have to do the entire motions of it.
You do it by like interpretive dance.
No. You pick up a marker and draw on a whiteboard.
Oh,
Welcome to
man.
Skeleton uh Skeleton Podcast.
Yeah.
Skelecast.
Here at the SCP Foundation, or I guess at SCPod, we are friends of all skeletons, which is why we will be doing
This
a skeleton bonanza. Okay, so
that'd be good.
we have to move on because I'm sure we're the only one finding amusement in this. Um, Dr. Zach,
Yeah.
immortality. Do you think it is a
Hmm.
blessing or a curse? Like true
Oh,
immortality.
it really depends on what you really think is important.
Well, that is why I asked, do you think it is a blessing or a curse?
Oh, like for me, I think I'd be
Yeah.
down with it. I don't I would see it as a blessing, just because like most of the downsides of like watching all your loved ones die, outliving every single one of your descendants, and generally being unattached to the world are all problems I already deal with. So no downsides for me.
That's very true. Would you like become like a stuntman and like throw yourself off buildings?
Uh, what I would do is I would purposely photobomb places, and so that over the years people would eventually get really freaked out and start sounding like conspiracy theories, like that one guy who shows up in old timey photos, like all the time,
I
and or like I would like quote unquote like off myself over time in like really outstanding fashions until people realize it's the same guy doing it over and over again.
I read a r/ writing prompt the other day where
Uh-huh.
it was like you're immortal and the the downside to going to museums is seeing all the factually wrong information because you lived through it, and how like this guy was like a warrior throughout different wars in medieval
Mm.
times, and somebody caught on to the fact that he used the same weapon in different wars that were like hundreds of years apart. And I think that would be a lot of fun. It would be fun for like the prankster side of things, but then when you actually are found out, like having somebody national treasure their way to that would be really fun too.
I think so. There's a lot of fun to be had there. What about you?
Okay, so I really like immortality as a concept, um,
Hmm.
because it's not strictly a benefit. Like you were right when you were talking about the downsides of losing all your loved ones, outliving everybody, and things like that. And there's a video game I played. What was it? Lost Odyssey, I want to say,
Hmm.
but it plays around with this idea of like these immortals that are basically cell swords, but they start losing their memory because they've fought so many wars, and like they lose track of who they are and stuff like that. They just know that they
It's
can't die.
it's it's yeah. It's like being undead in Dark Souls 2.
Exactly. So yeah, it's really interesting for that. I am under the impression that I would call immortality a curse. I think it would be a blessing for the first 1,000 years, maybe even first 2,000 years. But when you start to get to some like end of the world scenarios and things like that, and you're left alive floating through space alone with your thoughts, I think that's where it just becomes like, I want to be done with this.
Yeah, I can see it. I could also be. I personally would be kind of into it, so maybe that's just me being weird.
No, I think that that's I think it's a difference between the short term and long term thinking of it. Like short term, yeah, it would
Mhm.
be really. It's like you don't have you can go do whatever you want without the risk of dying. Like I think that that's really cool.
Mhm.
But then the long term thoughts of it, like, is it worth it? Probably, honestly. But I think that that's why immortality is so cool to me. Is like it's not strictly a good thing. It's not strictly a bad thing.
It's just a thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like you think of like any other kind of quote unquote power, like flying or something, and it's like this is just a strict good thing. Like there's not very much that can be cursed about it.
Well, I mean, it's a strict good thing unless you're afraid of heights.
That's true. That's true. And you forget to how to turn it off.
Right? Like there was one of my favorite internet cartoonists made a comic strip about someone giving Superman the phobia of heights and how just crime rate goes down in Metropolis because everyone feels bad about it. And so like there's just this he's always off screen just being like ah, ah, and everyone's like, guys, my heart's not in this anymore. I gotta
go. So with that, Harold Holt went through numerous very heinous ways of achieving immortality. You can agree with that, right?
Yeah, technically he went through all these ways, but also only went through them once.
Right. So, what power would you have to be gifted to go through some of these heinous ways of achieving it? I'm thinking the Sarkic one. The Sarkic one had like his limbs all twisted and stuff like that. Like the shark one had his skin grafted, which is not very fun either. At least I can assume. I've never had my skin grafted, but
it's not great.
What power would it have to be for you to put up with like such a heinous way of achieving it? And don't say invisibility, because that's sus. I mean, you could say immortality if that's like the end all be all power for you.
I don't know. I would push back on the idea of invisibility being sus, just because like if I had invisibility, I would just use it to go to like grocery shop without being bothered, or stand at a train station without being bothered by panhandlers.
Okay.
Or like I was trying to avoid my boss. If I was trying to avoid my boss at work.
You just like think real hard and you just like
But I mean, I don't know, I feel like there are definitely like uses for invisibility that aren't entirely suspect, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, good. If you do, shame on you.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I honestly, invisibility would probably be it. Aside from immortality, it's one of the two.
Yeah.
Or like
I like the
use
idea.
it to walk.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I'd probably use invisibility mostly to just be in public and not be bothered.
I can see that.
Or go exploring.
Yeah. Use it to go break in and steal the Declaration of Independence. That's 2 National Treasure references in one episode.
You're on a roll. But honestly, not admitting to anything, but I used to be really into urban exploring when I was younger, and I feel like I would probably revisit the hobby if I had invisibility.
Okay. It's all fun and games until the animal recognizes your existence that you're trying to sneak by.
Well, I mean, cats do weird stuff all the time, and dogs do dogs, and so I mean, no one's gonna notice.
Yeah. I like the idea of like the Ant-Man power of being able to like shrink and grow on a will. Like I just think that would be really fun. But I would love to do it with just like singular parts of my body. Not that way, don't be sus. But like like go to like high five a friend and like make my hand really large or something.
Boom. Just slap them on down.
Yeah. I also love the idea of this is devolving into a superpower podcast, which you can't really talk about Harold Holt without it. But the movie Jumper, if he has visited a place before or can visualize the place, he can teleport to it. I think that is super cool too. With like a pretty unique drawback, all things considered, because like teleportation's pretty overpowered, but like if you have that limitation on it, then it becomes a lot like more balanced, I feel like.
Yeah.
But
do you have anything else to say about Harold Holt?
Moving on. No, I don't really have too much more about Harold Holt. He has his hands in a
Like,
lot of different cookie jars.
Like, at some point, you and I think we should revisit the Tyler Harold Holt situation and see if we can actually, like, talk about them as, like, a cohesive whole, because I feel like there's something more there. It's just, like, talking about Harold Holt, almost, like, even if you try to talk about the phenomena of 3477 by itself, I feel like you are only talking about maybe a third of an anomaly.
Yeah.
In a weird way. Because, like, I want to talk about the Church of the Broken God. I want to talk about Sarcasm. I want to talk about Tyler more. So let's put a pin in this one because I feel like we can definitely revisit this later. But I feel like Harold Holt gives us a really good opportunity to talk about some of these other really interesting groups. Like, we are definitely going to sit down and talk about Sarcasm more at some point. I don't know when. But let's get together after after we get done recording, and we'll figure that out.
Oh, I mean, like, let's do it. Like, let's this is episode 6 of this season.
Yeah.
Let's take some time and let's research sarcasm and like
those.
You know what? Executive decision. Executive decision.
Okay.
Dr. Zach and I are going to go research sarcasm, and next season we're gonna talk about some weird fleshy things.
Get ready for body horror.
Yeah, no, that sounds fun. We'll tackle our first group of interest and dip our toe in some of the spooky things happening outside of the Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And
sounds like a plan to me.
Yeah. In the meantime, Zach, we're taking some time off. Where can people find some stuff from you in the meantime?
Yeah, so in the meantime, they can find me over on my personal blog of makeawritingcheck.blogspot.com, where at the point of this episode's release, I should be releasing stuff every 2 weeks, so keep an eye out for that. I also have my new channel over on YouTube, Rule for Writing Presents, where about once a month I'll be releasing some short video project up with either reading a story or a poem or something of my own creation.
Cool. And for more Dr. Caleb, it's pretty simple. Twitter and Instagram at Calica1738. I don't have any cool shield to, like, I'm kind of a ghost, but sometimes I repost some stuff for the podcast, and or you could just get it straight from the source at SCPod_cast on Twitter, on Instagram at SCPod.cast. You can always find us on Spotify and YouTube. I upload on both of them consistently, and no status updates on Amazon or Apple, but I mean, who knows about those anymore. Please remember to like, subscribe, follow, rate the podcast, all that stuff. We do get a huge boon from that, and it is a completely free way that you can help support us, and we appreciate it greatly. It helps everybody, including us, avoid annihilation. So, we'll be taking a little bit of a break, and we'll be back with some spooky flesh monsters. And do you have any final words of wisdom for the audience, Zach?
Yeah. Jonathan, it's right behind you.
Thanks, guys. See you next time.
Bye.